Game Time with Boomer Esiason. This week's guest is International Hockey Hall of Famer and three-time Stanley Cup champion, Scott Stevens. Presented by Geico.
As kids, today's guest and his two brothers battled on the rink behind their house in Ontario, Canada, each hoping to play in the NHL. Jeff became an NHL scout, and of course, Mike played 23 games in the league. And the other, well, he became a hard-hitting defenseman who skated 22 years with the Capitals, Blues, and Devils, taking the Devils to 3 Stanley Cups as their captain. It is my pleasure to welcome NHL Hall of Famer and NHL Network analyst Scott Stevens to the show. Scott, welcome. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
You know, I've hated you a long time because I'm a
That's
Ranger
a compliment.
fan. Right, I'm a Ranger fan, and you know that because
Yes.
we live in the area here together. I want to start back when you were younger, when you were a kid. At the age of 4, you knew you wanted to play in the NHL. How does anybody know that at the age of 4?
I don't know, but I just love the game. We had, my two brothers, and we just played outside. We played hockey 24/7. We watched the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I just fell in love with the game, and I knew this is what I wanted to do. Did whatever I could to make it, and then fortunately I was able to make the NHL.
Just wondering, how competitive were you and your brothers?
It was very competitive. My mother did not finish the living room till we were out of the house because it was just a little miniature hockey rink inside, and it was actually probably helped me in hindsight. We were all a year apart, so we battled hard and we played hard, but we were good brothers.
We in the football world kind of know the positions we want to play when we're young. I was always a quarterback, always wanted to be a quarterback, didn't want to have anything to do with anything else. In the hockey world, how do you know that you're a defenseman as opposed to a centerman? Because I would always think that it's about scoring goals as opposed to stopping other people from scoring goals.
Well, if you think about it, a defenseman's a bit like a quarterback. You're sort of the last guy. You make the plays. You got to see the ice. You got to read the plays coming at you. So I like that part of the game. Also, you can be, physical there, taking the body, open ice hits, which I love to do, finish guys in the corner, box people out in front of the net. And then, I love to advance the puck, and I like to try to beat a forecheck, try to get back there under the pressure and advance the puck up or carry the puck up the ice. So that was all intriguing to me as a defenseman.
My idol was a guy by the name of Burt Jones. I'm not sure if you know who he was. He was a quarterback for the Baltimore Colts, and I wanted to play just like him. Did you have an idol growing up?
Well, I did. Daryl Sittler. He was a defenseman, a Swedish-born defenseman that played for the Toronto Maple Leafs, which was the team I watched and loved. They weren't very far away from Kitchener, so I liked what he did. He was a really good all-around defenseman. He would block shots. He could, make plays. He could produce some offensive numbers. But most part, I liked he was an all-around defenseman, which I wanted to be if I made it to the NHL.
If you made it to the NHL, I think you knew very young that you were going to make it to the NHL. Scott Stevens was only 18 when he broke into the NHL and made an immediate impact. And while opponents feared his bone-rattling hits, his Washington Capitals coach, Brian Murray, worried about his short fuse landing him in the penalty box often. Teammate Brian Emblem recalled Murray telling Stevens before his first playoff series, "Behave yourself. We need you on the ice." Now, is that true?
Yeah, it is.
So you couldn't behave yourself?
Yeah, I think when you're young, people try to take advantage. You sort of have to establish yourself a bit, and I like the physical part of the game. But at one point, Brian said, we can't have you in the penalty box. You're too important. We need you on the ice. And that kind of made me feel good, and he's kind of right. You need to be there for your teammates, and in the penalty box was not helping us win. I'm
thinking about when I was 18, there's no way I could have played professional hockey or professional football. I was still growing as a young man. How does an 18-year-old survive in the NHL?
I'm not sure. I guess physically I was probably mature enough. I was in pretty good shape, and I was a bigger guy, so that definitely helped me. And I think just the want. I just wanted to play in the National Hockey League. I wanted to get there, and I wanted to get there as quick as I could. And my mom will still say it to this day, and I wasn't cocky. When I went to my first training camp, she says, "Don't worry if you don't make it." And I said, "Mom, I'm not coming home." And I'm not a cocky person, but that's how much I wanted to play in the National Hockey League.
Well, you had confidence in yourself. So, taking penalties is one thing. Hitting hard is another. And a lot of people don't like to get hit. A lot of people don't like to throw hits. But it seemed like something that you like to do right from the get-go. Why was that?
For me, when I was playing physical, everything else happened. It's like that made me a good player by playing physical. When I was physical, everything else in my game came together. The passing, the making the good plays, everything was was bang on, but it all started with that fundamental of being a physical player and playing hard and getting in people's face.
I think about the type of player you were. You weren't a chirper. You weren't a guy that was always talking. You were never out in front. And a lot of your teammates said you led by actions as opposed to words. And I think that's probably one of the nicest things that a teammate could ever say about you.
I think it's the most important thing, to lead by example. And, you know, the guys knew when I wasn't happy with the way we were playing as a group, as a team, because the next day in practice, they came ready and they were making sure that they kept their head up. Because I would, if things weren't going good, I'd let the guys know, and they could just tell by my face if I wasn't happy with the way the team was playing as a group. And I think that goes a long ways. And when you lead by example, it's easy for everyone else to follow.
Did you enjoy your 8 years with the Capitals, the initial 8 years of your NHL career?
Absolutely. They were great years. I had great people, great coaches. You mentioned Brian Murray, who was a phenomenal coach and very good to me. I had a lot of respect for him. I learned a lot there with the likes of Rod Langway, Brian Englund, Craig Laughlin, Doug Jarvis, all those Montreal connections. They came over as I grew as a player there in Washington. We had some great years.
You guys are good, but you could never get over the hump.
Well, the Islanders. It was
the Islanders.
The Islanders
I agree with
they
you.
were an unbelievable team. I mean, not that we always seemed to meet them. We had a great defensive team. We shut it down real well, had a little trouble scoring, but then we had to play usually the Islanders to get out of our division.
Right.
And they were a juggernaut at the time with all those top players, the Bossies, the Potvins, the Tonellis. It was crazy.
So is that why you went to St. Louis?
Find an easier route.
Right, maybe find an easier route. You know, was that hard for you to leave the Capitals and go to St. Louis?
Yeah, I signed as a free agent. I wasn't sure. I think in hindsight, I would have been happy either way, because as an athlete, you kind of would like to stay with the same team your whole career if possible,
Right.
but it didn't work out that way. The Capitals didn't match, so I went to St. Louis, and we had a great year there in 90, 91.
Well,
it was phenomenal.
don't get into the next year yet, because this is one of the most amazing stories that you will ever hear in professional sports, how Scott Stevens ends up with the New Jersey Devils. It's wild. We'll be back more with the Blue Liner voted one of the NHL's top 100 players right after these messages.
You're watching Game Time with Boomer Esiason.
Welcome back to Game Time, everyone. Sitting here with Scott Stevens, one of the great NHL players of all time, and we were talking about how you became a New Jersey Devil. So you decide to leave the Capitals, sign with the Blues as a free agent. You become their captain, and everything looks like it's going to be great. You guys actually have a very good team in St. Louis, and then all of a sudden the Blues decide that they're going to go after Brendan Shanahan. Right? Isn't that how this happened? So he then signs with the Blues, and because the Blues and the Devils can't come up with a trade package, they ask an arbitrator to come in and take a look at how they can sign Shanahan as a free agent, I should say.
Right.
So now all of a sudden the arbitrator decides that Scott Stevens would be the equal compensation for the Devils, and after buying a house in St. Louis, becoming the captain of the St. Louis Blues, after 1 year, you're getting shipped off to New Jersey. What was that like?
It was difficult, probably more difficult for my wife. When you're a hockey player, you just want to play hockey. Yes, I would like to stay in St. Louis, but as they say, everything happens for a reason. And we went on to bigger and better things in New Jersey, so it all worked out. But it was a trying time, just getting into a house, having my son just born, and having my daughter a very young age, a year old. So we were busy, but like I said, you just want to play hockey, and we just moved ahead and moved to the Devils.
But I just can't. Weren't you mad at like you just made a decision to change your whole life, uproot your family, go to St. Louis. You play 1 year there. It's a good year. You got good teammates.
Yeah,
you got a team that possibly could win a Stanley Cup there. And if you add Brendan Shanahan to that team and you stay there, most likely you're going to go win maybe a couple cups.
And we were talking earlier. The Blues offered Curtis Joseph, who's a good young goaltender, and Rod Brindamore, who had a heck of a career.
But Lou Lamoriello did not want them. That was the GM of the Devils at the time, right?
Yeah, so Lou, he didn't want any of that, which everyone's like, come on, that's pretty good. Everyone's thinking, but no, he put his package together, he put his case together, and he won the arbitration, and we were off to New Jersey, and Shanahan was in St. Louis.
Now, you didn't show up right away because you were unhappy, right? Did Lou have to talk you off the ledge and say, come on here, come here, this is what I'm building?
I have to say Lou was very good, and Lou did everything he could, and that's one thing I say about Lou Lamoriello. He does whatever it takes to give the players and the team the opportunity to win, and he was very good to my wife Donna and I, and made sure we had everything we needed and made sure we were comfortable, and that goes a long ways. And I have a lot of respect for Lou and what he did.
So you get to New Jersey, he hires Jacques Lemaire and Larry Robinson as your coaches.
Yes.
This is the Canadian way now, and you're a Canadian kid, and you are now learning from two of the greats of all time. What did their impact have on you?
It was eye-opening. It was like I played 13 years in the league, and then I'm starting to learn all these little things, and they're just little things, but little things go a long ways, Boomer. Positioning on the ice, how to use your stick, how to defend, how to play a 2-on-1, stuff that I was probably good at, but when they started showing us these things, us as a group, and it started to work, and we started to feel good, and the confidence just rose, and we were winning hockey games. We were frustrating teams. It was like, wow, it's amazing what it did for us as a team.
When you hear the term trap in hockey,
don't say that.
Does that bother you?
Yeah, it does.
Why does it bother you? It bothers me as a fan because it was so frustrating to play against a system that had the word trap in it.
Boomer, they still play 1-2-2.
Okay.
That's a nice way of saying it, a 1-2-2.
Okay.
So say that, 1-2-2.
1-2-2 as opposed to the trap, okay.
No, and what's funny is they still do it today.
Yep.
We were just very good at it. We made sacrifices to do it the right way and play that way. A lot of guys wanted to play freewheeling hockey. They wanted to control the puck. They wanted to go through the neutral zone. They don't want to dump it or make the right play. And in return, we transitioned, scored a lot of goals. And I always say this to this day, in 2000, we won our cup. We were the second highest scoring team in the league, and we were playing the 1-2-2 or the trap.
Okay.
So we could score goals too.
Well, I'm not here to try to upset you. You're the last guy I want to upset, I can tell you that. But it was a system that really showed itself, and the coaches helped, obviously, you see that.
Oh, yeah.
And then along comes a young goalie by the name of Martin Brodeur, who basically changes the entire game. What was it like playing with him?
It was amazing. We really didn't know much about Marty, and he came in there and he had a lot of confidence. We looked at him. He was very athletic, very gifted, the way he played the game. And we were like, oh, this guy's pretty good. He's
like playing
around.
with a third defenseman, wasn't he?
Well, that's for sure that. I mean, he was the best puck handler around, and it definitely helped. There was no trapezoid in the time, and, when he got the puck as a defenseman, I would just open up and get open for the puck, and my partner would get open, the center would get open, the wingers were open, because he could make any of those passes. He was that good. So we were very fortunate to have Marty Brodeur in the net, and he could make big saves too. People say, well, he played in front of a really good defense and a really good system, but you still need a really good goaltender to win a Stanley Cup, and Marty gave us that night in and night out.
And we're going to talk about some of those Stanley Cup runs that you've had and some of the great games that you've had and some of the defining moments when we rejoin right after this. Stay with us. All righty, back here on Game Time with Scott Stevens talking about his Stanley Cups, 3 in fact. Now, the first one, I just want to get this story out there and make sure that it's right. You guys are playing against Detroit, and you knock out Kozlov out of the game. Yeah. And your former teammate, Dino Ciccarelli, is sitting there on the team on Detroit, and he's screaming and yelling at you. Did you turn around and say to him, you're next? You did?
Yeah, he was chirping. And I'm not a big talker. I just sort of let my actions speak for myself. And he was chirping about the hit, and I know it was a good hit. It was a clean hit, and it was an effective hit in the series. And then he had that, so I just had to just say, you're next.
Was he next, though? Did you ever get him?
No, he's a pretty smart player. I'm not sure if I did. I might have got him in front of the net a few times because he liked to go to the front of the net, so we probably had some battles, so I might have given him a few cross-checks there. But
I think of a defining moment in a game and how Scott Stevens basically announces to the world, I'm here. And to me, it was probably Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Philadelphia Flyers in their building. And their captain, Eric Lindros, is coming back from a concussion. And you just absolutely lay him out with a clean hit, I might add, right around the blue line, I think, if I remember correctly, and knock him out, and he misses the next year. But it was one of the most violent, vicious hits I think I've ever seen in hockey.
I think people, if they're going to bring something up to me, they probably talk about that more than anything else. But which is great. I mean, that's the way I played the game. That's how I helped my team win. I think I gave our team an edge by playing that way. But You know, you never want to hurt anybody, but I played hard. I played the right way. I was never suspended for hitting. I think I had one suspension for elbowing my whole career as a physical player. But I know that was a big part of my game, and that was effective in the playoffs, and it still is effective in the playoffs. The big hits and the contacts when you're trying to wear teams down in a 7-game series to win the cup.
But wasn't that like always the thought process of a Lou Lamoriello or a Larry Robinson would say, hey, look, it's not always about scoring. Sometimes you can change the course of a game by a big hit.
Sure.
And, you know, that hit, you're knocking out their captain in their building. Mm-hmm. You're sending a message to your players without even saying anything. That's why your teammates respected you so much.
Yeah, that was a big part of my game. I mean, teams knew, and they would always talk about before games, be careful cutting across the middle. But, you know, you have to look back at that series, and you talk about defining moments. For us as a team, we were down 3-1, Boomer, before we got to that Game 7. So we had to play almost perfect hockey to get to Game 7 to win that series against Philadelphia. But obviously, my physicality was a big part of us winning that series and helped us win some cups.
So now, after that series, you now go into the Stanley Cup Finals against the Stars. And this is a monumental series because you have overtime games. And I know how intense the Stanley Cup is. And I know how hard it is to win 16 games in the spring to try to hoist that. But this series goes into overtime. 3 overtimes in Game 5, I think. 2 overtimes in Game 6. What is that like?
Oh, it was tight. It was nerve-wracking and very intense. But 2 teams that played very similar hockey, very disciplined. Hitchcock was a coach for Dallas. So we had to be at our best. But, you know, we had the A-line, Jason Arnott, Peter Sikora, and Patrick Eliash. We had that great line. We had a really good team, and we had a strong team. So we stayed with the game plan, and we were well coached, and we prevailed in that series, but it was tough.
And we're going to talk about broadcasting next, all right?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, stay with us. Scott Stevens, a little bit more right after this.
Game Time with Boomer Esiason is back.
All right, we're back with Hall of Famer Scott Stevens. Before you went into the booth, I mean, there had to be a deciding moment there where you could have been a coach initially, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I dabbled in coaching a bit, but the TV was good. I mean, it allows you actually to be a teacher and a coach, and you're basically teaching an audience. So it's kind of the same thing, but you just don't have to go out on the ice and do it and make sure they do it and do it right. So it was a perfect fit, and I'm one that I love watching hockey. When I played the game, I watched hockey every night, and now I'm retired, I still watch hockey. So why not go on the air and bring your knowledge to the game and talk about games and be an analyst?
But you couldn't help yourself. You had to go back and coach.
Oh, yeah.
So you go back to Minnesota,
Yep.
and you coach, and you actually, is it 2016, I think,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And you guys had a good team in Minnesota.
Really good, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so why only a year?
It was tough being away from home. I have a little farm here, 25-acre farm, and I think it was one of those things where you just got to be all in and move and sell off and move out to Minnesota to really enjoy the whole experience. And that was the toughest part. You know, everything we had was here in the East, and my family was here, my kids were here. So that made it tough. I guess just being away from home was hard, but I really did enjoy coaching, and we had a great team there. Bruce Boudreau was phenomenal, head coach for Minnesota. Loved the players. We had a great year. So it was a great experience overall, and I would never take that back.
What is the thing that you take out of today's game from when you played? Like, could somebody play like you did now?
I think so. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, I think that's the biggest change. But like all sports, Boomer, like football, concussions are a factor. We have to have a safer sport. Mm-hmm. And I think both leagues, the NFL and the NHL, have done that. But I still think there's more room for physicality. We don't see enough of, I think, guys sort of bypass some passes and finishing guys off and letting guys get into the blue paint without really paying a bit of a price, being on their seat of their pants at times. So, but once again, when the playoffs start, it's a whole new animal. A lot more physicality. People love that game. So one thing, if I could do, I think we could have a little more physicality in the games than we had in the past.
You know, 3 players that I see at the top of the food chain in the NHL, Ovechkin, Crosby, and McDavid. All 3 have, I think, skating ability. They have a sense about where they are on the ice. and all three are physical. They don't back down from anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
that's truly the epitome of what a great hockey player is, isn't
Yeah, Ovechkin's he's a bull. He's a bull in a china shop. He can bring that physical element. He's learned how to score from different areas, not just that power play spot in his office, top of the circle. He'll get to the blue paint and score goals. Crosby's phenomenal, one-on-one winning those battles. He's not a big guy, but he's very low body, strong, and he can win little battles. So McDavid, pure speed, a horse too. He can get up and down the ice, and he's hard to knock off the puck.
Are you surprised that there are as many young players playing in the NHL as quickly as you did?
Well, I think with the salary cap, Boomer, they had to start fitting these guys in there earlier. Plus, it's become a faster game. They've eliminated the red line, so it's a much more north-south game, so you need the speed, and it's a much more pressure game. So you need 4 lines, you need guys with good young legs, and that's why there's so many young guys playing well in the National Hockey League.
I think the great thing is that hockey is growing. I see it all around here in New York in the tri-state area, and due in large part to the Cups and the success that guys like you have had. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you much. Thanks to Scott Stevens for joining us today, and to all of you for watching. I'm Boomer Esiason. I'll see you again soon, right here on Game Time with the great Doug Flutie. That was great.
Awesome.
Good job.
Thanks. I just wanted to play in the National Hockey League. I wanted to get there, and I wanted to get there as quick as I could. And my mom will still say it to this day, and I wasn't cocky when I went to my first training camp. She says, "Don't worry if you don't make it." And I said, "Mom, I'm not coming home."